Hey everyone. Alright, so this evening we're going to be starting off the timeline for end time prophecy. And we're going to start with Daniel's 77s. Now you've probably heard of Daniel's 770s before. What they are is Daniel, he was taken to captivity in Babylon. This is back I think 600 BC or so. And the Lord gave him visions. And one of these things that an angel gave him was the 77s, which is 77-week periods. So we're going to start there because that's going to explain not only the timeline to the Messiah, but what's going to be happening in end time prophecy, and then correlate with all the other prophecy of end times that correlate to this same 7-year period split in half. So open up your Bibles to Daniel 9. This is where it talks about the 77s, starting with verse 20. While I was speaking and praying, confessing my sins and the sins of my people Israel, and making my request to the Lord my God for his holy hill, while I was still in prayer, Gabriel, the man I had seen in an earlier vision, came to me in a swift flight about the time of evening sacrifice. He introduced me and said, Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding. As you began to pray, the answer was given, which I have come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. Therefore consider the message and understand the vision. 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgressions, to put an end to sin, and to atone for wickedness, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, to the anoint the most holy. To the anoint the most holy. Can't speak tonight. Know and understand this. From the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuilding in Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. That's a total of 69 of the sevens. It will rebuild the streets and trenches, but in times of trouble, after the 72 sevens, the anointed one will be cut off and will have nothing. The people and the ruler who will come and destroy the city and the sanctuary, the end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end. Desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. There's the final 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. On the wings of the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end is decreed and is poured out on him. So first, let's talk about the messianic stuff. So 640 BC is when Daniel had this vision. He was in Babylon. Babylon conquered Israel and took him captive over. That's also Daniel, Meshach, Abednego, and Shadrach, and the fire furnace. You know that. So we have that. About 200 years later, after Assyria conquered Babylon, and the Syrian king, and you can read about this in Nehemiah, which isn't the last book of the Bible, but it's the last history book, because the Bible is separated into history, or the Torah, the history, the prophets, and some other things, so they're different sections. But Nehemiah is the last historical book of the Bible, and you can read about it there. So King Xerxes, I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry, allowed Nehemiah to go back and to rebuild Israel. So from that point in time, there was 7 sevens, which in the Jewish calendar, it's a little bit different than our calendar, so you'd have to look up, because this is all in Jewish calendar years, not our calendar years. In those 7 sevens, it was rebuilt, and that's where it talks about in Daniel that the streets and the temple and the wall will be rebuilt. From that point in time, the temple to, if you actually calculate down the exact days, the lunar calendar, or how the Jewish calendar works, it's complex, and I couldn't explain it myself, but there's things on there. To the exact day of the last day of the 69-7 is when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the donkey on the night that he was betrayed, or the day he was betrayed. So from 600 BC, it prophesies not only when the decree to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem to that point, and then of course to when the Messiah came. So that's cool, like prophesying exactly to the day when Jesus came, the anointed one. And then it goes into, there will be one more 7-year period. And when God will reconfirm his covenant with the people, the Jews, and then all this stuff happens. So we're going to be looking at the last 7-year period. Everything correlates to a 7-year period split in half. Let's go to Revelation real quick. So Revelation also mentions the same thing quite a many times. The 3.5 years and 3.5 years are the 7 years total. We'll start by in chapter 12, where it's talking about, chapter 12 is a symbolic representation of Satan attacking Israel. because it talks about the dragon saw. Because he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child, and it talks about the male child before with the woman with the 12 stars and the sun and moon, which is representative of Israel, Jacob and his wife. And of course, the male child that would be ruler, is going to be Jesus. The woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle so that she may fly to a place prepared for her in the desert, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time. Time, times 2, and half a times 3.5. So she'd be taken care of for 3.5 years. You can read on, and I would like you to, of course, read around this stuff as well to get context. I'm just hitting specific verse time-wise. Also, then, of course, it talks about in chapter 13, where the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies. The beast is going to be the Antichrist, and to exercise his authority for 42 months. Again, that's 3.5 years. He opened his mouth to blaspheme God and slander his name and dwelling place, in his dwelling place, and those who live in heaven. He was given power to make war against the saints and conquer them. He was given authority over every tribe, war, every language and nation. All in heaven and the earth will worship the beast. All those whose names have been in the book of life, who have not been in the book of life from the beginning of the Lamb and the slain creation of the world. Okay, so there's that 72. So far there's going to be a time of rest, and there's also going to be a time of the 3.5. Now, whether those two are separate is negotiable. Whether it is a time of peace for 3.5 years, and then the Antichrist coming and doing all this stuff for 3.5 years, if that's it, I don't think so, because it also talks about how the Antichrist will give peace and he'll be seen as a leader or whatnot. So I kind of think those are on top of each other, that he's going to be the false prophet and he'll be in the temple. And then after the 3.5 years, it goes into more detail. Ezekiel also covers some of this, where it talks about Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38. And I'll quickly cover that. I have so many things. Okay, Ezekiel 38. Gog and Magog in 38, it talks about the attack and kind of the timing of it as well. And he'll rise up against the leader who's there. Pretty much how it's going to happen, though. Of course, there's going to be a couple things. One, the temple needs to be rebuilt, because the Antichrist has to be in the place of the temple, the desecration in the temple. There's going to be sacrifices, and the Jews will all be living in some sort of peace, because in Ezekiel 38, it talks about how Israel will be an unwalled and peaceful city. They'll be in a time of peace. Right now, they're not in a time of peace. So at some point in time, which correlates with that revelation, there's going to be rebuilding of the temple. They'll be allowed to rebuild the temple, most likely by the Antichrist. Will be a false Messiah. So someone that was perceived to be a redeemer for the Jews, but in actuality is going to be the Antichrist. And there's some theories, which I'll go into more detail in another video, about the Antichrist, who it could possibly be, the mark of the beast and other things, but we're not going to cover that right now because we're running low on time. So you're going to have this 3.5 years of peace, I think, and along with the Antichrist ruling and letting the Jews be in peace. But what happens after that 3.5 years? Well, we're going to turn back to Revelation real quick and read the passages that are afterwards, talking about the beast was given authority to exercise the power for 42 months. So this is Revelation 13:11 now. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. So this is after the 42 months. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. He exercised all authority of the first beast on his behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose fatal wound had been healed. And he performed great miraculous signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven in full view of men. Because of these signs he was given power to do on behalf of the first beast, he deceived the inhabitants. He ordered them to set the image of honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. He was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so he could speak, and all that refused to worship would be killed. It goes into more detail, of course, what's happening. There's going to be the ones that are sealed. Then there's going to be more trials and tribulations that are going to be occurring in that. And you can look at the seals and all the other stuff. I ran out of time, but I just want to give you, basically, from this whole video, I want to tell you this. 1, temple needs to be rebuilt. The Daniel 77 lays out, and also in Revelation and Ezekiel, that there is a last 7-year period. So it is a 7-year period split in half. Keep an eye out for when Israel finally becomes in peace and a leader that will give them peace. And from that point on, keep an eye out, because that will be the last 7